Welcome to yet another episode of Relationships with Vee Mindful. Today, we are going to have a very fun conversation, but I will tell you some parts of this conversation are probably not going to be made for YouTube, so I'll give more information throughout the show. Today's conversation is a grown folks conversation. We're going to talk about really sex, not just sex after 50, but sex. We have a special guest today. She is a licensed marriage therapist as well as a certified sex therapist. Her name is Angela Skirtu. She actually has a YouTube channel where you can find more information on her and her teaching you some very, very detailed things on her channel. Angela, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Angela Skirtu, and that was actually a great introduction. I have the Open Bedroom Doors YouTube channel and the podcast that's coming out soon. And I also have 3 books. Is it okay to shamelessly plug already?
Okay, go ahead.
So the first book in my Open Bedroom Doors book series is from the F word from and it's all about changing your relationship with sex, teaching people to like shift their mind. Basically, there's a lot of these negative messages we've developed growing up in different walks of life, essentially. And so in the book, I'm really trying to teach people how to change their relationship with sex so they can show up for sex in a better way.
We're going to dive into some of these things. Some of these things y'all not going to hear on my YouTube. So the link for my community is down below. Some of the stuff about how to do oral sex, we're going to talk about it because that's what you teach as well. And I want folks to hear about it. I like to talk about connection, right? Connection in relationships, but ultimately connections with ourselves. A lot of times my audience are 50 and over. Some of them have like disconnected sexually. What are some of the things that they can do to start bringing the sex back into their relationships, whether they're married or dating or whatever? But what are some of the things that they can do to bring sex back?
Well, so if you're in a relationship, I'd start small with low level affection and talking about what kind of affection you might be open to giving and receiving. So I actually work with a lot of older people too. I would say my highest audience is males 65 plus, which I'm not sure why. I think they want to hear about sex and they just don't know where to go to ask about it. But so to get people back into like having intimacy again, I think you need to start with things like cuddling and kissing. Like actually a lot of my older males say that that's something they're craving more is intimacy. Like, yes, they want sex, but like they've lived their whole lives essentially like chasing sex, chasing, chasing that high. And as they get older, actually, they're wanting something stronger and more serious, right? And I'm hearing that a lot from my older male clients that they want to cuddle and they want somebody who compliments them and finds them attractive and just wants to give them attention. And so a lot of what I'm helping individuals do is like change the way sex looks. So I speak a lot about creative sexuality, actually, and that is that your whole body is capable of giving and receiving pleasure from head to toe. And so if you think of your whole body as as capable of sexual pleasure or intimate pleasure, then it can change the way you show up for your intimate relationships, right? So you don't have to start with having sex with somebody. It could start with, let's give each other massages, or let's just play with kissing. Like, you used to make out back in your teens, but like, I don't know if people are playing enough with like kissing and flirting and exploring like intimate touch and kissing, and so I get people thinking outside of like, I have to get from this is like your mouth, your boobs, and your vagina, right? Like those 3 pieces. It's like, how do we make it a whole full bodied experience? But for males, the same thing, right? Like it's not just your mouth and your penis, but right, like it's how do we like incorporate your chest, your back, like a more whole bodied experience? How can you, I don't know. I just think they're looking for way more than what Hollywood is showing them. And it's interesting to me how the aging changes that for people.
Okay, somebody else might be wondering this question just off of what you just said, because I'm wondering, do you think a part of that with men, you said 65 and older are craving more intimacy. Do you think maybe some part of that is because they're might be going through ED and then, because their penis isn't working like it used to in their 20s. So now they are left with the kissing and the hand holding and the laying on the chest type activities?
Yes, I definitely think ED can be contributing to it. And so when I talk to my clients who are in this older age category, if there's an openness to different types of sensual massage, then if their erection's working, cool. If it's not, cool. How do we make, you
Yeah.
have a mouth that's capable of giving pleasure. You have hands, you have toys now. There's toys in the world that you can use. And so, yeah, some men, like they still want to be intimate, but they don't want that pressure of having to perform constantly. And actually getting ED is happening earlier and earlier because of this same problem, actually, that like we've reduced sex just to genitals. And as a result, people are missing the intimate connection that could actually, what's funny, so an erection is a byproduct of doing things that are hot, basically hot and relaxing. And so if you are so focused on just getting that erection and getting that erection, then it actually is not sexy. It is the opposite of that, and it prevents them from getting to erections. And so when you can help men see that whole body experience and make it more about intimacy and feeling close, then actually they get more erections as a byproduct of relaxing in their bodies and being more present with their partner. But you can't will an erection into existence. And that's the problem, is they go through this transition essentially from when they were younger. They didn't have to think about their erections. They would just come naturally. And, like a bra was dropped and they were like, oh, we're here.
The wind blew. Yes.
The wind blew.
Yes.
But as they age, they need more direct stimulation to their penises. And they also need more full-bodied experiences, and they need to get their minds in the game, not just nudity. It's not, nudity's not going to do it anymore. Like, and even some of the things that once worked, you lose nerve endings. Like nerve endings get less, they're more numb, like that's for all of us. Like they're just on a side note, but like people who are older going through surgeries tend to recover better because our nerve endings are like dulling over time. And so it's just something that changes, right? Like if you tickle a kid, they're like, ah, whereas like you tickle an older person, they're kind of like, meh. Like your nerve endings are dulling.
Okay, I want to dive into that a little bit because I've done videos on erectile dysfunction, and I know that is a concern. And I did a video from a woman's perspective, dealing with someone who's had that, and of course for men. When you say we got to get more into the game with men, right? Let's say I'm with somebody who has ED. Like, what can I do? Stimulate him better? Is it like sapiosexual type person? Like I got to stimulate his mind? I mean, like what, when you say the whole body, is it like massages? Like, what is, and making him feel comfortable?
So it can be massages that you share and give and receive. So it's not all about him and it's not all about you, right? Like it's about both of you. So it could be you guys do sensual massage that's not focused on the penis. Like the penis can be like an afterthought, but it's more about rubbing the whole body down. You can make it more about making out with each other, talking about naughty things. So even getting the brain going, talking about like sexy things or watching sexy content together. There's like Netflix shows like How to Build a Sex Room that I'll have people watch, or, just to get ideas. Getting a little kinky is sometimes what people do to get their brains in the game. And then also, like, again, if the penis isn't working, if you so I'm going to get a little graphic. Like if you're going hard on a penis and it's not getting hard, there's not like a technique to do to just keep forcing it. Like actually getting away from the penis, if that's what you're doing and you're seeing it's just not working no matter what, what hand motions or mouth motions you're using, it's just not doing it. Then stepping away from that and maybe rubbing on the legs and rubbing on the back and the butt, and then maybe turning it around and him going down on you and making it about making you feel good. Like just having other options on the table is one way to work on, or to have a good sexual experience without the erection. I always say, like, find another bone. So like you can grind on any part of a man's body and you can still get off if you're a female with a vulva and a clitoris. And so put him on his stomach and like grind on the bones on his back and you can get yourself off. And sometimes that's like so hot, he didn't even know that was an option, that like is the thing that starts getting him like, holy cow, I will do that more.
Okay.
And then he gets an erection as a byproduct. That's the thing. The erection is a byproduct of doing hot things and being relaxed. So if you take the pressure off of the penis, then sometimes you can get an erection, but you really have to be understanding that either it's going to work or if it's not. Like, and if it doesn't, how do we still do something intimate that feels good? And so he's got to be willing to be generous too. And that might look like, hey,
Okay.
my penis isn't working tonight, but let's do something else. I'm going to go down on you. I'm going to pleasure you. I've got G-spot stimulation. We got the toys. We'll do full sensual body stuff. And that's where it can be tricky, right? Because in some cases, it's that a woman's trying really hard to do that. But on other cases, it's the opposite. It's that a woman was kind of a pillow princess and she didn't have to do much to get him erect. And now, like the aging penis essentially needs more direct stimulation. And so in that case where she never really had to do something, the opposite may be true. That like he needs you to touch him. He needs you to, here's my hand motions. I don't know why there's two penises here, but there's two. He's going to need a little more direct stimulation. And so really it depends on what the sexual style is of the couple to really help them figure out how to work through the ED. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, for let's say the woman, okay, how can a woman not even take that personally? That her partner is just kind of sitting there like it's not doing anything. It's just hanging out. Like, how can it? Because a woman, I know we are women, we do take that personally, right? So how can a woman maybe not take that personally? That okay, does he not find me attractive anymore? Am I not sexy anymore? I mean, I know I done put on 5 pounds. Is my belly like, how can a woman not even take that personally?
Sexual problems are a part of life. And I think just as a society, we need to change our relationship with sex. Like everybody goes through sexual problems at some point, and it's not abnormal, but because we don't talk about this, we don't normalize this. And that's what the real issue is. So, and of course we all self-blame. So like when you feel bad, you either explode or implode. So you either blame your partner or you blame yourself, right? And the reality is they're like 50% of guys, man, at a certain age, they're all getting erectile dysfunction. It's not you. It's that like he can't in his 20s and his 30s when testosterone was just a little higher and his actual nerve endings were firing stronger, he could get those erections quicker and easier. As he ages, a couple things get in the way. One is, your nerve endings do absolutely numb. And two, you're just not like every one of them says to me, I don't get the same erections. I don't get as strong of erections, but that doesn't mean they don't love you. That's just the natural part of aging. And I think we need to talk about health and wellness for this too. So like if you're obese, if you do not do cardio, like if you really want to get better erections, please do cardio exercise because it's a cardiovascular piece.
say that. I do, and the HRT therapist I had on, as well as a pelvic floor therapist, and I said it. I agree. Like it's all energy. You got to get things moving. You can't be sedentary. You're blocking whether it's spiritual or whatever. You're blocking the energy down there, and it's got to move. So yes, please.
You need cardio exercise and you certain drugs, like if people are drinking. I was just talking to a guy the other day and he said, I can't drink ever. If I want to have sex and actually have an erection, I cannot drink alcohol. We need to talk about alcohol and drugs as the thing that are getting in the way too. Because I know that it's normalized and a lot of people drink, but I'm telling you, whiskey dick is a real thing. And if you are drinking on any sort of regular basis, you are definitely preventing your erections.
Hear that loud and clear, people. Yeah, and I'm allergic to alcohol. Thank goodness. So I've always been, I've always been everybody's designated driver because I can't drink. It's that half Asian gene. They call it, when Asian people get really red. But for me, it impacts my breathing to where I'm like struggling to get air into my lungs. So I was like, you know what, it ain't worth it. And so because of that, like, I do believe I live a healthy lifestyle, and I think that's so important because it's not just sex. It's it contributes to a lot of things. How we take care of ourselves contributes to the whole person. Well, I'm glad you said that. I did a whole show about how a woman can literally internalize the fact that the man, because we've always known men, shoot, he get out here, girl, he wakes up with a hard penis, right? We've always known that to be the case. And then we're sitting there butterball naked and things are just kind of loosely hanging around like this, and it's just like, and I understand. So I'm glad, we're saying that.
Well, and I want to add something to that, Vee. He's a person. Do. I get that his erection was easier when he's younger, but he's still a person and he has feelings, right? And so when men get older, they want more out of life. They don't just want sex. They want a whole relationship. They want intimacy. They want to feel like you like them. That's another thing. So a lot of them complain, they say, I never ever get complimented by my partner or by women in general. Like nobody compliments them. I had another sex therapist I talked to. He said it could be 3 months before somebody ever noticed me. And he was a pretty decent looking guy, by the way. So I was like, really? And so I think as women, we need to start seeing men as whole people and not just their dicks. Like they're a person in there and they want more than sex. They want intimacy and closeness and to feel like you care about them.
I think we should be doing that, complimenting each other, and as we age as women, well, okay, let me just ask them, what are you seeing as women age? What do women want then? Y'all, want to briefly interrupt today's show to talk about a brand new community that I created for us. When I say for us, I mean for the mature adult man and woman, so that we can have candid, open conversations and we can grow and learn together. This community will meet twice a month, me meeting with everyone twice a month, live meetings to where you can ask me any question and I'm going to be there to answer your question. The community also includes a monthly book club, y'all, because I am dedicated to helping us grow and learn together. We're going to be talking about topics like menopause, erectile dysfunction, y'all, connection, the masculine and feminine energy, y'all, dating, love, divorce, grief, topics that address specifically us as we mature in age, because life be lifing. And I feel like we need a platform to where we can share and grow together. Y'all, no negativity, completely positive. Also, in this community, I will be releasing exclusive content that you will only find within this community. I want to go deeper into our conversation so we can actually have real life, adult, grown-up conversations when it comes to sex, intimacy, love, marriage, divorce, and everything else that comes in between. This community is open to whether you're single, married, divorced, happily single, unhappily married, it doesn't matter. I want to create a space to where we can really connect, because life is about connection. I am committed to helping us all have better relationships, whether it's with a partner or with yourselves, but I want us to grow and learn together. And I feel like in order to do that, we got to get more personal. I want to see you and I want to talk to you so we can laugh and love together. So click the link in the description below or in the first comment of this video to join our community, y'all. So let's get out here and continue to live our very best lives. Y'all enjoy the rest of this video.
I think it's so different for each woman, right? So like I'm going through perimenopause, that 10-year period before menopause. And I think our hormones definitely impact us, right? Like some people, as we're going through this phase, we're more sexual. Like there's that last hurrah before your eggs are gone. But like there's other people who are like, at like post-menopause in particular, I've seen big divides, right? Where some people are more sexual and some people are like, I could live the rest of my life without sex. And so I definitely see women who are wanting more intimacy and closeness too, but I see women on the opposite end who are like, I just want to be pounded. Like I am feeling so sexual. And like, it's interesting because as we age, we become more comfortable in our skin. And there's a little bit of like, I don't care anymore. I don't care what you think. I'm just going to be myself. And I think that combination is creating like this whole like group of women. You're talking about singles, like cougars, and like they want to date and they're out on the prowl. And they want to date young men too, because they want them to be able to, keep up with them essentially.
Yes. Okay. I don't know if you know who Tracy Ellis Ross is. She is one of Diana Ross's daughters. And so she is an actress, a very popular actress. And she was just recently on former First Lady Michelle Obama's podcast. And she is, I think she's like upper 50s, 55, 56, 57. It still looks great, right? Okay, yeah, body banging. She is beautiful. She says she prefers to date younger men. But the reason that she gave, I just didn't agree with. She said that she feels like older men have the toxic masculinity, where I'm like, I think it's switched. Me personally, I've seen more of the toxic masculinity in the younger, but I'm like, girl, you ain't got to lie and say that you just like a man with a vibrant penis. I mean, because I feel like that's really why we may date younger. And I did a show with when men date younger. I think it's just the vitality of life. We sometimes we get into this routine. Everything everything becomes mundane. And so, okay, when things become mundane too, sex can become mundane. We get
Mm-hmm.
into bed at 8:30 p.m. You roll over to your left, I roll over to my right. We do 3, 5, 6 pumps, and we go to the toilet and we call it a night. Like, so how can a couple or anybody, how can somebody keep that, introduce new things into the bedroom without seeming like, like they don't want to be judged. I don't want to be no freak. I don't want him to know that I learned this before him. I'm just going to try it on him, right? But how can they introduce new things or keep sex going?
I like to answer this in two ways. One, own your freak. Like who cares if you're a little freaky? I would like you to give yourself some permission to be as freaky as you like, wherever it came from and however it came from. And
Mm-hmm.
then to answer, how do you bring it up? Awkwardly, like everybody who does it. So the question gets asked again and again, like, how do I bring up A? How do I bring up B?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all different sexual things. But the reality is you're judging yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's preventing you from putting it out there. And I'll tell you, there's no magical way to do it. You just
Just bring it
swan
up.
dive into an awkward abyss of sexuality and hope for
Mm-hmm.
the best. And
Mm-hmm.
if your partners who care about each other and are listening, then they're going to listen and work with you. And if you're dating, since, I want to keep thinking about those singles, if you're dating, if you can't bring up stuff, then that's a good red flag to not continue dating that person, right? Like,
True.
we need to get more comfortable as a society talking about sex. And I think early on, maybe not on the first date, maybe. I mean, I
Maybe.
talked about sex on the first date, but I am a sex therapist. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, being good in bed is a baseline to even get to the next level, right?
Yes.
But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's perfectly fine to talk about sex at least on a second or a third date of like, hey, what are you like? Or if you've had sex, you should be able to talk about sex. So if you had sex on the first date, then it would be weird to me that you
Mm.
couldn't talk about the sex that you had.
Okay, that was a question that I was going to ask you too. Okay, let's dive into this part right here because that you just literally hit it right there.
Perfect.
What do you because two part. I want to ask two questions and because I don't want you to I don't want to forget. One is how to talk about, I have my perception and my experience of how I introduced sex into a conversation when I was first meeting somebody. And this is the conversation my daddy heard me say the other day that I'm mortified. He said he and my mother were watching my live on the big screen TV, and that made me feel even worse. But
They're so proud of you, I'm sure.
I'm like, okay, it's embarrassing. But how can someone comfortably bring it up sex? And I know I have again my perception and my experience, but that's one. But two, because we got in a huge debate about just sex on the first date. Yay, nay, what do you think as a sex therapist? What do you think about sex on a first date?
Okay, well, I'll answer both. So the
Okay.
first one was, how do you get comfortable talking about sex? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm challenging you to get over it. Like, stop trying to
Okay.
be comfortable. Like,
Okay.
it's
Mm-hmm.
awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's a little tense at first, but what you're actually learning is risk tolerance. So stop
Okay. All
trying to
right.
be comfortable, start
Mm-hmm.
learning to tolerate taking chances and risks. Because every time you bring up sex or something new with your partner, you're actually taking a risk. So I want you to imagine, have you ever done cliff diving or jumped off a big cliff into the water?
I've done bungee jumping.
Okay, bungee jumping is a
Mm-hmm.
perfect example. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so when you're about to take a risk, a big risk like that, so I like to jump off cliffs into the water. And if you've probably seen somebody do this, right? If they
Mm-hmm.
stand there and they think too long, they will think themselves out of it. And what it
Okay. Mm-hmm.
is you're standing there ready to jump, and your body is literally filling with those stress chemicals, the cortisol
Mm-hmm.
and adrenaline. And those chemicals are designed to save you. So they're like, don't
Mm-hmm.
jump. This is dangerous, right? Like
Okay.
they're there.
Uh-huh.
They're good
Mm-hmm.
chemicals. And so what they're doing then is once those built up too much in your body, then you'll walk off the cliff or you won't jump because your body protects itself from a stupid
Mm-hmm.
decision. Because it is, I mean, they're dangerous if you're not like buckled
Mm-hmm.
in or something, right? That's why when people jump out of planes, they don't do 1, 2, 3. They jump out on like 2 and kind of trick you a little bit.
Mm.
So
Okay.
to really effectively jump off a cliff, what I
Mm-hmm.
do is I don't think, I just jump. what people have to get over is this idea that you need to be comfortable talking about a risky topic. It's taboo. It's uncomfortable. No, you need to develop risk tolerance and you need to just go for it.
Wait, so before we get into the other question, so I think the concern, right? Because women, if we've done online dating, we know how it goes, right? Somebody you be talking about what you do Tuesday night, and then next thing you know, some man might ask you, so what you wearing and what's your favorite position, right? And then it's like, hold on. Those types of topics, like, I believe we should talk about, like, because there's qualifiers, like,
Sure.
okay, do you like to go to the movies? Do you like to blah, blah, blah? And I do believe a sex question is a qualifier. But when somebody, changes, because I'll just share this, like, when I was married, I won't go into details. Somebody didn't like to do it wasn't me. But there was two people in the marriage and it wasn't me. So it was somebody else in the marriage that didn't like to do certain things. And so when I started dating again, I was like, I will not go down that rabbit hole again because I was married way too many damn years to be dealing with that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would ask that as a qualifying question. Do
Yeah.
you participate in, XYZ?
Yeah.
So but then the conversations, because if we open the door to say you just jump, but how can somebody, because then you're going to get the freaks, girl, the ones that are just, so do you want to come on over and bounce on, and it's just like, wait a minute, you don't want to be used for sex either.
Well, you're allowed to have boundaries. So jump
Okay.
just means talk about it, but you're
Mm-hmm.
still allowed to have boundaries. Actually, I think I'll answer this well in the second question you asked earlier,
Okay.
which
Okay,
is,
go ahead.
can you have sex on the first date or not? So first, you just get used to talking about sex and
Mm-hmm.
getting used to it is what you do. You get used to just bringing it up. Like, I don't know what it was, but like, say it was oral sex. Like, hey, do you do oral sex? Because I'm not going to date someone who doesn't. That is taking a risk. And like, you just get used to putting it out there.
Yeah.
And then if they say, oh, yeah, I'm totally into oral sex, cool. That was a qualifier. That's like one of the things I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for in a partner. But you're also
Mm-hmm.
allowed to have boundaries. So I can't say recently anymore. Within the last 10 years, divorced, and now I'm remarried. Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time has passed. It's actually been 6 years, but like it still feels recent to me.
Okay.
So I was a sex therapist dating, by the way. Talk about potential for creepers and people to
Oh
cross your
yeah, I can
boundaries,
imagine.
right? Be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you do what? So when I was dating, what I used to do is I set up boundaries for myself. And I would tell people on the first date my boundaries, where I'd say, I hug the first date, I kiss the second date, and if you're lucky, I'll fuck you on the third date. And that
Okay.
was my boundary. And I
Okay.
didn't follow it all the time, by the way. But I did tell people that was what I was going to do. And I'd put it right out there up front, just
Okay.
like, yep. So don't take it personally if I only hug you on this first date. The first date, I just need to take time to get to know you and get to
Mm-hmm.
know, like, comfortable with you. And the reason I set those up for, because I want to teach you the behind the scenes. Why was that there? It wasn't just some random thing that I did. I set those boundaries because as a sex therapist, it is my job to talk to people about sex and about different topics on a regular basis. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes my feelers can be off in the
Mm-hmm.
moment. And I don't realize that something is a little weird or awkward because literally it is my job to like
Okay.
desensitize and talk about things that everybody else is like, oh, you said
Mm-hmm.
what? I'm like, I feel nothing, right? But that's
Uh-huh.
because I've done it many years. So the boundaries were to protect me from like not recognizing when something was a little bit of a yellow flag or a red flag. Because
Mm-hmm.
what happens then is after that first date, then my brain does a thing where it's like, huh, what happened there, Angela? That seems kind of odd. That was weird. Or,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I liked that. That's interesting. It's not always bad. Like it can be a mix of things like, oh, I want to get to know more about this. But it gave
Mm-hmm.
me space to decide what
Okay.
was good for me. And so I used it on multiple occasions with multiple dating situations. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I didn't necessarily always follow it. There were a couple times where I had such a good time with somebody that I did have sex with them on the first date. In fact, my husband, I had
Oh,
sex
hold on
on
now.
the
Hold on
first
now.
date.
You said you had sex. Because we had this whole debate, and I was like, two people are grown. Okay, but you had sex with your now
My
husband.
now husband, yes,
Thank
on the
you.
first date.
See, yeah, that's you prove my point. Like, I'm like, okay, because we literally had a whole debate about that, right? Because I'm like, you know what, two people are grown. I'm not
Yeah.
going to sit here and tell anybody just know that there may be consequences to that, right? Let's say you have a very anxious attachment style. You definitely, you damn sure shouldn't be having sex on the first date, because you're going to get overly attached to somebody, and it's somebody you don't know yet. So like, if you feel okay with doing it, then I'm not going to sit here and tell you, no, I'm not your fairy godmother. Okay. Like, it's okay.
So I set the boundaries for myself to protect
Hmm.
myself, and I didn't always follow them, right? But it was my choice to decide if I did or didn't follow them.
Hmm.
So I can tell the good story, which is my husband. Yeah, I had a sex on the first date with him. He was very good in bed. He met the first quota.
Okay,
But
now, hubby.
I can also say though that like I had other situations where I had sex on the first date, and yeah, they were good in bed and they were fun and flirty, but then as things passed on and progressed, I could tell they were like, one guy was only interested in sex. He clearly
Hmm.
wasn't wanting something serious. So I still have a right at any time to set a boundary. Like after I noticed that really he was only contacting me, like it was like booty calls. I was like, okay, that's not what I want.
Yep.
And that's the other thing. Like you can
Hmm.
just want booty calls. There was a time right after my divorce, I call it the slutted up period, where you've been in a marriage for so long, you just want to fuck around. And so there was a period right after the divorce where I just didn't care and I
The
wanted
hoe
to have
phase,
sex with a
girl.
few people.
You went through a
Yes.
hoe phase, okay?
A what?
The hoe phase. The
Yeah, of
hoe.
course. Okay, you call it the hoe phase. I call it the slutted up period. Whatever. Yes. I just
It
needed to
happens.
fuck people because it had been so long, like that I'd had other partners. But then that died off after a while because I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that was fun, but now I want something different. And so the point is, you can change your boundaries at any time. You can
Mhm.
decide what your boundaries are. And just talking about sex doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have boundaries. It just,
Mhm.
the jumping off the cliff is about, you know what, I'm getting comfortable bringing up topics that are important
Mhm.
to me so I get the sex that I want. The boundaries you
Absolutely.
have to learn, like it's basically how you learn to trust your body. I'll use the same cliff example, right? So
Mhm.
when you jump off a cliff, you do still have to learn how to like position your body so that you safely land in the water and you
Yes.
don't get injured. So those
Mhm.
boundaries I set for myself for dating, ways I might break up with somebody because I could see where they were going. That was me learning to trust my own body and my own way of handling myself through that sexual experience to
Mhm.
decide what was right for me. And so I don't think there is a right answer to should you or should you not have sex on a first date. I just
Mhm.
think that whatever sexual experiences you're doing, I want you to be direct, have conversations, and learn to
Mhm.
trust yourself through them and set
Mhm.
boundaries for what works or doesn't work for you.
I fully agree, just because I know that, like, you got to own up to your stuff, like, and
Yeah.
for, yes, trust me, I was in a long marriage too, and I understand. I'm like, you know what, I don't want to, especially if you're going from one relationship, you're not trying to get back into another one just like that. But
No.
we're humans, and don't beat yourself up for being human. We all crave emotional and physical connection, and I feel like that's just being human.
I think it's
Okay.
perfectly fine to have rebound people. I had a rebound guy for a while. I kind of knew it, like I knew that I was
Okay.
just with him because he was good in bed and he was good for the time being. But the one
Okay.
thing I want people to do is be honest with
Hmm.
themselves. Like, all right, if it's a rebound guy, be with a rebound person. Who cares? But like, don't make something bigger than it is either, right? Like
Hmm.
if you're not serious with somebody, don't lie. Just tell them like, "Hey, this is what
Yes.
I'm looking for." But that's the conversation, right? Like you can
Hmm.
be we're grown people. I love that you keep saying that we're all grown. It's
Hmm.
like
Yes.
just tell people this is what I'm looking for. I just want to
Hmm.
play around and have fun. I'm not interested in something serious, and they have a right to decide what their boundary is. If that works for them, cool. If it doesn't, then they should also have a right to decide, no, I'm looking for something serious. You have fun. You
Hmm.
go, girl or guy
I
or
tell you,
person.
there are some. Now, I will give kudos to the men who are actually upfront and they say that, but then women, y'all gotta stop not believing them. Oh, I could change him, girl. No, you're not.
No, who
Believe him
told
if.
you?
Yes, I know. And it's just like, well, you still went forward with it. When somebody tells you that they don't want anything more than a bed wench, then y'all gonna have to believe them. No, you're not going to change your mind. No, you're not going to outsex the last chick who was probably twirling on the ceiling fan. Like, just believe what the heck they say. And to your point, honor your boundaries. If that's not something that you want, move on, because somebody out
Mhm.
there is looking. You started the conversation, said there's a lot of men out here who are looking for something of substance, right? Not just sex. Maybe sex in their 20s, but not 50s, maybe some little old freaks out here. Okay, y'all better stop them old freaks out. Y'all settle down.
I mean, you can be a freak. Just be it. Own your freak.
And find somebody who's okay with your freakness, right? Don't be out here lying, because I can't stand. That's one thing. I'm like, don't be lying just to get somebody, because you think that, well, she's not going to want me if I tell her that I only want to just sleep with her. But you don't know who you're sleeping with today. Somebody could be crazy, and mentally just not all there, and they could be very, very, very possessive, jealous, have not worked through their own demons, and now next thing you know, they cooking a rabbit on your stove. So y'all better be careful out there. Just be very cautious. Okay, so when we talk, and I was talking a little bit about, like, the physical and emotional intimacy. Now, sometimes there could be a disconnect in the emotional intimacy. If she's not getting, and I'll just use the typical women, maybe not getting their emotional needs met. I'll be in stereotypical, but let's say that she's not getting her emotional needs met, and how can she, though? Can she still show up physically to meet the physical and sexual needs of her partner if she's not able to get her needs met? Like, there's and this may be on the marriage therapist side of your professional career, right? But
Mhm.
how can they bring that balance back to where we're meeting each other's needs?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. This is a common thing that happens in my therapy practice, right? Where maybe the man wants more sex and the woman wants more emotional connection, and usually they both need both. And so, what
Mm-hmm.
I typically do is help them do parallel tracks where we work on both,
Tracks.
right? So, I
Okay.
don't think you need to emotionally connect to have sex. I don't think you need to sexually connect to emotionally connect. I think you can do them
Mm-hmm.
both, and they're kind of a parallel track, right? So when couples are struggling with this piece, then we look at, all right, what are the emotional interests that are not being represented? And one thing I try to do, so for anyone who's struggling with going to the other side, you have to have a selfish reason to do it. So for example, if I'm helping a person think about emotional connection, I don't want them to do it to meet their partner's needs. I want them to create an emotional connection because it's good for them personally. Like, if you don't have an intrinsic motivator for doing something, you will get resentful of it naturally. So if I'm only meeting my partner's needs, and that's for sex or emotion, if I'm doing this for them, that
Mm-hmm.
is the heart of resentment building.
Yep.
And so for each side, whether it's a sexual or emotional connection, I try to get the person who's struggling with it to find something in it for them. So let's
Mm-hmm.
flip over to the sexual side. It's typically women who struggle, but not always, right? Like I have people who have
Mm-hmm.
trouble all across the board. Doesn't matter your gender. The surprises are endless in the open bedroom doors
I believe it. I
world.
believe. Mm-hmm.
But so, like, if you're struggling to connect with sex and you're having sex for your partner, that is a surefire ticket for desire killing. So you can't have sex for your partner. You have to find something sexual for you. You've got to learn to, like, what's something I get out of this that's just for me. Maybe I like the warmth I feel when I'm intimately connected with my partner. Maybe I actually like playfulness. Maybe playfulness is a closer avenue to me to intimacy. Maybe it's I actually do like orgasms when I get them, so maybe I'm going to be a little selfish about getting my orgasms. But
Okay.
like you for both sides, you cannot do it for the other person. It's not about meeting their needs. It's about recognizing that you have needs too, and
Mm-hmm.
finding a way to access your own connection to the sexual need or emotional need. And then when you're doing it for you, you're actually going to do it long term. But if you do anything for your partner, it is the breeding ground for resentment. I know that doesn't sound very nice and like sacrificial. Like, a lot of religious people like the idea of, like, you're just supposed to do this, but it starts obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do it, but you do it kind of begrudgingly. Well, I guess I have to do this for them. Like, even chores, if we take it outside of sex or emotions, like, find something out of a chore for yourself. Like, I have partners who struggle with doing chores around the house. And so like one person's doing all the chores and the other person isn't. So for the person who isn't, find something out of chores that's valuable to you, that makes it fun, interesting. Maybe play some music, maybe make a game out of it. Now you're doing chores because you want to, or because you like that it's organized now, because you did this thing. If you do chores for them, you'll get resentful. We're a little bit selfish like that.
I hear you. I hear you. And I agree. I agree. Because nobody wants to feel resentful, and nobody wants to have that obligatory type sex. That is the recipe for a dry coochie and a weak penis. Right. So I completely understand there. But it's like, but what happens though? You know, let's say you're with somebody, and let's flip the script. Let's say that the woman wants it more than the man, right? She wants it 2 times a day. She wants it 2 times a day. And he could be okay with maybe 2 times a month. That'd be terrible. But let's say he's okay with 2 times a month. And you know, it's like her needs are really not being met because she wants it. So it's like there's a huge disconnect there in their needs. So how can he not feel like, well, I know she needs this, you know, because he's gonna run out of damn benefits of his own. Like, well, I know I like it when she scratches my back, and then I like it when she, you know. But it's like, how can somebody keep that up when they're, you know, when let's say their sexual needs are so far apart, they're just so different.
I mean, it's a loaded question, but there's a variety of things that couples need to talk about and address when it comes to like big, sparse differences. So for the person who's a lower desire, regardless of gender, if they don't have something in it for themselves, the desire will tank. And that's what I want people to hear. You have to have something in it for you. And the something in it for you could be, it's fun to make her like, you know, like, like when you go down on a woman, for example, like, okay, yes, you're giving her an orgasm, but it can be fun to feel a sense of power over her. Like you're able to bring her to orgasm and do this crazy thing and make her feel good. And so that's the thing you're getting out of it for yourself. It could be you just like the way she tastes. Like the thing doesn't have to be I'm getting an orgasm or I'm getting off. The thing you can get out of it is just I feel close to this person or I like this person. But like you do have to get something out of it for yourself or you will get resentful. But this is where I want people to be creative. Like there's a wide variety of getting things for yourself. Now, here's the part where you're not going to like me is that in some cases, there just is nothing. Like I've done it. I'm over it. I just don't care about sex anymore. And in those cases, we need to have some real honest conversations about what are we going to do in this relationship then? Because my needs are way higher than yours. And I do want sex as a part of my life. It is a need for me. It's okay if you can't be the one to fill it, but then how are we going to fill it some way else? And some couples are in spaces where they do ethical non-monogamy, for example. Like they allow for one person to explore outside of the marriage. Other couples redefine their relationships and say, you know what, we're good as friends, but we're not good as lovers. And that's when sometimes divorces or readjustments to sex happen. And a third thing that sometimes happens is you don't expect that person to be the only one to meet your needs. Like you have your own sex life, right? So you can have vibrators and toys and you develop new ways to masturbate that are a little more fun and playful so that like some of your needs sexually are met with this partner, but then it's not completely reliant on that person. But it still goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where you've got to have direct, honest conversations. It's awkward and you get used to handling that risk. But you bring up and say, look, this isn't going to work for me anymore. And I do need more than this. But I want to be with somebody who wants to do this with me, not somebody who feels obliged or like they have to.
I can recall somebody leaving a comment and said that, hey, can you talk about the non-monogamy, you call it ethical non-monogamy type relationship? So this would be somebody, both partners obviously agreed. But let's say, I guess if a person doesn't agree, then that person might either cheat or the option is to just get a divorce because, yeah, I guess so, right? You either going to cheat and probably 9 times out of 10 people are probably unfortunately doing that. Unfortunately, probably cheating and getting their needs met elsewhere. I'm for, you know what? Be honest, be upfront, bounce. You know, because, you know, it's just, you know, it's like, yeah, because But I guess so. I mean, the ethical non-monogamy thing, like, I wonder how the person feels, the one that's, not the one that's stepping out and getting somebody else to fulfill their needs, but the one that's sitting at home. How do they typically manage those feelings, or are they so checked out physically that it doesn't bother them?
Both. Sometimes they're so checked out physically that it doesn't bother them anymore. Sometimes it reignites their spark because they're both kind of doing something new and exciting with each other. So like there are weird dynamics that occur as a result of it. I definitely don't want people cheating, but I mean, this is the unfortunate side effect of being a sex therapist is a lot of my practice is people who've cheated, and then like what will have happened is they talked, they said, hey, I'm struggling with this and I want more of this or this, and their partner really didn't do anything. Like they just continued with the status quo. So then they started cheating, and then they find out, and then they're very hurt. And so like that's the way I don't want people to do it, but
Yeah.
that's a common way that it happens. So yeah, I mean, those are the options, right? Like if you're in this situation, you can cheat, you can talk about ethical non-monogamy, but you both have to do a lot of work to talk and like connect on the same page and set boundaries for like what's the way to do this that's going to respect the relationship and protect us too, because there are some risks to doing that. Like there are people, there is actually a big surge in. So it used to be only 5% of people were practicing ethical non-monogamy, but since 2020, y'all got kinky. It's like we all got stuck in our homes and we were like, I don't know what's out there. We all face death. And so death breeds new life. And we all have like, we got things to do before we die. And so like, it's interesting. It increased after 2020. But I will say the same challenge is there. Like if you don't know how to talk about sex and you don't know how to set boundaries, then opening up your relationship isn't going to change that. It's just going to cause more chaos. And so I still want to go back to whether you choose any of the options we said, which aren't great options. I mean, they're okay. Or see a sex therapist, see if I can help, of course. But like if you've tried all the options, at some point you need to bounce, and you can be friends and you don't have to be lovers. But I think people think of divorce as like this ending, like it's over. And it's like, actually, I mean, if you have kids, you're still in each other's lives. It's just about how you treat each other through the divorce.
Sometimes, sometimes it's unfortunately you still
I
got
mean,
to deal with each
yeah.
other. But okay, so now there are some people who are going to say, well, sex isn't everything. And then one partner really wants to stay and be like, well, sex isn't everything. I guess the person that says, well, I would still like to have sex, because I've seen people. I know I coached somebody who wasn't like, they got nothing. They got nothing for several years. But anyways, it's like, but one person might want to stay together and say, well, sex isn't everything. What do you say to people who may say, sex isn't everything in a relationship? Shouldn't we, like, is that all you wanted? Like, but what do you say to those people that don't put emphasis on sex at all?
It is okay for everyone to have whatever boundary or relationship they have with sex. When you are partnered with somebody who it is important to them, then you guys have to have some hard conversations about what's going to work for both of you. And
Yeah.
to your point, I mean, if two of you were in that situation, like both of you are like, it's sex, I could live without it. Really, I just want the companionship. Actually, I'm thinking of my father right now. So my dad's older. He's in his 70s and he's dating this woman, and they are only companion. I know, like, because not that I'm in their bedroom, but like the reality is I just know my dad well enough. I'm like, yeah, they're not being intimate. They're holding hands. They spend time together. There's an intimacy, but they are definitely not fucking. And it's okay. Like all I'm saying is like, that's an okay relationship style, but you need to be more equally matched then. Like it's really unfair if you're in a space of like, I just don't want sex. It's just not for me. I could live the rest of my life without it. And to be then with a partner who's like, I'm not dead yet and I want to experience life and I love you. I care about you. But if you can't be this, then like, how can we make a space for it? And it's also unfair if they're so far apart to make either of them like jump across this chasm. And so that's when those hard
Yeah.
conversations need to happen, where it's like, okay, if sex isn't for you, how do you like change the nature of this relationship? You can be friends. You're still, if you're parents together, be good parents, but give each other space to either explore in an ethical way if you're staying together, or to separate, but with like dignity. Like you don't have to drag each other through the coals. It can be as simple as, yeah, we're just we're in different phases in life. Because like to our talk earlier, everybody's different in how they age and how they relate to sex. And some people are fine with being done with sex. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to be that way, just maybe in a different relationship.
Well, that's going to suck for some people, because I
It
don't
will.
think, yeah, because it's like, well, you can align in everything else, right?
Yeah.
And so many things. And I've even been there before. You can align in so many other things. And then this one thing is just like, or, whether it's physical intimacy or emotional intimacy, then that big thing that's a requirement for either one of us, you just don't align. You have to look at each other and say, well, I'm not willing to be in a 3-person or 4-person relationship. So I have to remove myself from the situation. And then, things end. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. So it is what it is, y'all.
It is, and we're living way longer. Let's like put this in a historical perspective. Like we are living such longer lives than we once did. Like
Mm-hmm.
forever now is way longer than like people were dying in childbirth, people died at
Mm-hmm.
younger ages. So like forever was a lot easier to commit to back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You're right. No, you're right. You're right. It okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm just
And
saying.
girl, may we just get out here and attract people who more so, I wish that for everybody, attract people who more so align with you and your needs, right? And, because I do believe they exist. Okay, so let's get into the my X-rated conversation real quick that will not be on the YouTube channel, only in a private community. Well, I won't keep you forever, but I would love for you to share how people can find you, your final words on this podcast, like would you like to share with our audience?
There's so much. So first you can find me at openbedroomdoors.com. That's my main hub for everything. But really I just want y'all to have a good time and learn that like sex, I don't know, sex is spiritual. It's fun and it's exciting when you learn to step outside of these old boundaries or old views.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about creating a whole body experience. So if you can find ways to do that with your partner, whatever body parts you're using, have fun, then you're doing the right thing. And yes, learn to communicate. Like you can only do it through communication.
You
So
ain't
B,
lying
thank you
about
for
that.
having me.
Well, I appreciate your time and thank you so much. And again, I'm going to separate. I'm going to separate this
Yeah,
out because
that other
I
stuff can't go on YouTube.
absolutely now, especially after you and I talked before we started recording. Now I really know it cannot go on YouTube. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Angela, for your time. I will post your links in the description below. Y'all check her out, please, on YouTube because I saw her. I said, all righty, she's the real deal out there on YouTube. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to me on my podcast, y'all. Until next week, y'all, take care of yourselves.